This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Half Past Podcast. This is episode 5, the movie review of Inside Out. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot Ian Jones.
I think right now anger's taken over my insides. All my little voices are just the tiny Lewis Black ones.
Our trailer for this week is the Minions trailer. So, first thing about this trailer, Jones, is this is one of those things that really kind of bothers me about these movies sometimes. It's kind of like Madagascar, where they find the characters that are the ones that everybody loves, and then they just stuff them all in your face for a whole movie, so you get the penguins of Madagascar.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of thing just kind of bothers me when they do this. It seems like you never see that happen with Pixar, but you see it happen with other companies.
Well, you say that now, but Pixar isn't above doing that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
You know, I would have guessed that Gru made the Minions in his lab, but this way they get more money.
I know. It's like, when you watch the original movies, you have an idea that you think that they were created, and apparently they aren't. Apparently they've just been around since the dawn of time. Sandra Bullock is starring in this movie as one of the bad guys, and I'm sure she'll do a pretty good job. She's always entertaining. I like Sandra Bullock for some weird reason. I've liked her ever since, what's that movie? Speed.
Oh, I knew you were going to say Speed.
I've liked her ever since Speed.
I don't really care for her, and I don't think this part is much of a stretch. So I think she could be really good at it. I'm looking forward to seeing a movie where the three main characters speak only in gibberish.
That'll be real interesting. And, they have to do a better job animation-wise also if they can't really communicate. So maybe it'll be really well done. So you never know. But it definitely seems like a fun little movie. I won't mind seeing it, but after seeing Inside Out, this movie does look terrible by comparison so far. So we'll see what happens.
And are there no female minions? Like, even with the Smurfs, there's the one, like, female Smurf, and you imagine, like, there's one mother somewhere who just spits out a bunch of little tiny Smurfs. But it seems like they're kissing fire extinguishers, but there are no girls, so where did they come from?
I have no idea. Maybe they'll explain it in this movie. I don't know.
There you go. A reason for us to go.
All right, enough for this Minions trailer. Let's get into the movie review. All right. Get inside Riley's head to go on an emotional adventure with joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust as they try to cope with a new life in San Francisco. This movie is directed by Pete Docter and Ronaldo Del Carmen.
Pete Docter has been in a ton of Pixar projects, from Toy Story to Monsters, Inc. Mm-hmm. He's been in maybe like 50% or something. He's been involved in a ton of Pixar projects, and this might be his best one yet. Yeah,
this one is extremely well done. I mean, I have no problem with saying Inside Out is going to win Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It's going to happen. This movie starring Amy Poehler as Joy. She was also in Mean Girls, Horton Hears a Who, and SNL.
Yeah, she was Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec, I think is
I always make sure to let you say Parks and Rec.
Thank you. I love Parks and Rec. And this is essentially Leslie Knope. Like, she's Joy, but this is that same character, Leslie Knope.
Yeah. Phyllis Smith is Sadness. She's from The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Bad Teacher, and The Office.
Who was she in 40-Year-Old Virgin?
She's actually not one of the main characters. She just kind of shows up in that movie.
Oh.
Yeah, she's not one of the main characters.
I think the only thing I remember her from is The Office.
Yeah, she's definitely most known for The Office. Richard Kind is Bing Bong, who's also in Stargate, A Bug's Life, and Mad About You.
He's had a great career. He was in Spin City. He's in Gotham currently.
Yep.
But if you think about it, had he stood up to James Spader in Stargate, he could have had a completely different career. Like, if he just said, "Nope, new guy," and slammed the door. Get out of my bunker.
Yep, he's shown up in a lot of stuff. He's had a very successful career. Next up is Bill Hader as Fear, who's also in Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Paul, Star Trek Into Darkness. Huh?
Well, great. He is super talented.
Yeah.
And I would argue that he is the best cast member to come out of SNL in a long time.
No, that's saying a lot, but I don't disagree. So, next up we have Lewis Black as Anger, the perfect casting. He's been in a lot of TV shows, like bit parts and movies, and he's obviously well known as a comedian.
I think I've seen him the most. I go to a lot of concerts and stand-up comedians, and I think I've seen him the most out of all other stand-up comedians, which taught me a very valuable lesson. Don't go and see stand-up comedians a bunch of times because they run out of material. You gotta give them like 5 years or so.
Nice. Next up, we have Mindy Kaling as Disgust. She was in Despicable Me, Wreck-It Ralph, This Is the End, and The Office again.
Another Office cast member.
Yeah, some of these cast members have worked on movies together before, it seems like. Next up, we have Caitlin Diaz as Riley, she's been in like a short movie, like a movie short, and like another independent movie. So this is actually her biggest role.
You know, I looked her up on IMDb, and I can't believe there isn't more on there. But as of right now, all it says is that her height is 5'3". That's it. That's all it says about her.
Wow.
How does it not say more? She's been in 3 movies. And if you were wondering, Graham, that is 1.6 meters. because that is the thing it also says. So that's for Caitlin Diaz.
As long as I know what it is in metric, that's
right.
Always valuable.
It is.
Diane Lane as Mom. She was in The Outsiders, Judge Dredd, and Man of Steel.
She plays the mom a lot these days. Martha Kent, Mary Rice in Jumper, the mom in Inside Out.
Yep. It's amazing how that happens with a lot of these stars. Like, they were really big years ago, and then they get older, and it's like they can't do lead roles anymore. Like, Hollywood's like, nope, too old. You're going to do mom and dad movies now. That's all you got. Last up here is Kyle MacLachlan as Dad. He was in Dune, The Flintstones, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, I have to tell you, Jones, the movie Dune, whenever you have people learning about film and how not to do things, Dune is one of those movies that you show your class. You have them watch it, and then you ask every single one of them how long do they think the movie was. And then when everybody answers 3 hours, that's when you tell them, well, it's actually only like 2 hours and 17 minutes or something like that. And that's when I think a light bulb would go off on the importance of pacing. That movie is very hard to get through. I can't believe It definitely seems like it's one of the longest movies ever made, but it just isn't.
You know, you got to be careful taking a shot at Dune because David Lynch might come after your ass, and he is creepy as shit, man. No one ever criticizes David Lynch because they don't want to end up with like a sheep's head in their bed.
Now that we're done with all these characters, let's go ahead and get into our quirks and likes. Alright, now for our quirks and likes sections. Let's go ahead and start with my quirks here. I actually have very few quirks about this movie, and believe me, I was looking for them. But one of the things that bothered me was when they had like Honesty Island and all those islands. I definitely love the fact that they did that to show that that's her buildup of her personality. But when they get lost in there, they act as if those islands are extremely far apart and they couldn't just walk to the next island. So like they went back into the memory and then they were like traveling for who knows how long. It was all day. And I feel like they could have just walked to the other one before it crashed. But they needed to continue the story on, so that's how they did it with Sadness. The other thing I didn't like about the movie was that imaginary boyfriend thing was such a weird part of the movie. Although they did pretty much die hilariously, so I don't care that much.
Yeah, well, Joy had no problem killing all those imaginary boyfriends.
No, she had zero problem with that at all. And honestly enough, man, my only other quirk about this movie was the scene where they went into abstract thought. It was, to me, it just like, they could have just cut that out entirely and it wouldn't have been a problem with the movie.
You know, I feel like there was someone behind me who must have been like a psychology major or something because she was laughing hysterically during that scene. I'm like, I'm sorry, but kids are not going to get this.
No, they're not going to get any of this.
I'm having a hard time getting it, and I went to college. This is just a little too clever for me.
Yeah, it was such a weird part, and I just didn't really understand it. And I'm like, yeah, well, I guess I'm just going to move on with this story.
Okay, is that it for your quirks?
That's all I got, man.
Okay, I got movie. A few to throw at you.
All right.
Okay, so the character that represents Sadness is a fat little girl. And that is...
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh my God.
That is just a little too on the nose for me.
All right.
I mean, she is sort of shaped like a teardrop, I guess, but
yeah,
that's basically what she is, though.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, all right.
Oh. The other one is Bing Bong, the imaginary friend. You know, I have to applaud them because this could have been an opportunity to introduce a bad guy, and it didn't go that way. But he sacrifices himself in order to save Riley, who hasn't thought of him in ages. Mm-hmm. And then he fades away into nothing. And he really gets the shaft.
Oh,
I mean, he gets the shaft in a way that I think no Disney character has in some time.
Yeah, it was... He did get the shaft, but it was... it was such an emotional part of the movie. It was really well done, and it's another one of those time periods where when they do these kids' movies, when they have to off a character... where they tend to like fade away, and it's always like a sensitive subject with these companies when they're trying to figure out how to take out a character. It's kind of like Kung Fu Panda, where they have to take out that turtle. What the heck was the name of that character? I can't remember the name of the character, but they had where he just kind of floats up and then just turns to like dust a little bit and fades away. So it's another one of those time periods where they have to do that, and I thought they did it pretty well this time.
Here's another thing. So Riley's in a bad spot, and she decides to run away from home, which I think is a relatable thing. Yeah. However, Pixar, I think, went a little too far because Riley steals a credit card from her mom. She gets online, buys a bus ticket, walks to the bus station, and gets on the bus. Thank you, Pixar, for showing our kids how to do that. Like,
well, hopefully they learned the moral of the story and that is not a good idea.
Well, they just taught millions of kids how to get away with something like that. And at no point did any adult at any point actually stop her.
Which, when I was watching the movie, I was wondering when she had came with the decision to do that. I was like, well, God, are they just going to let her on the bus without anybody saying anything? Nobody's going to say anything about this.
Oh, yeah.
It is a very relatable scene, I could think, for a lot of people. And it's just, they do that throughout this movie, and it's just so well done. But you're right, they did just teach a bunch of kids how to run away from home.
Riley's a fan of hockey. She grew up playing hockey in Minnesota, and I didn't see any Minnesota Wild posters in her room. And that to me seems a little disingenuous. Wouldn't she be a fan of the local team? So that's just a little nitpicky thing. And I think the last thing I have is, does that moving truck ever show up?
Oh, right. It doesn't. The entire movie, they're waiting for that moving truck, and it does not show up at all. They never got their stuff.
That's what happens when you pick the cheapest movers.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where it's like, well, why did it even go to Texas?
I mean, let's see. The map from Minnesota to San Francisco. Let's drive through the biggest state we have.
That's ridiculous.
That's it for me.
All right, now that we're done with our quirks here, let's get into the likes. Now, I actually have a lot of likes about this movie, and the first one I want to get started with is they figured out a way to walk the line with Joy. She is obviously extremely positive, and usually those people you want to punch in the face. And they managed to make sure that she was extremely positive, but still had almost a realistic attitude at times when they needed it. So that you didn't feel like she was overbearing with her positivity. And I think that's actually pretty hard to do. And I think they did it successfully.
Yeah, and there's even really a scene too where Joy goes too far. And she actually does something really bad.
Yeah.
And leaves Sadness behind and doesn't think Sadness should go back. And so I think that there is a really important lesson there.
Yeah, and the thing about Sadness is I really loved the scene with Bing Bong where he loses the rocket and it goes down into the memory dump, and which ends up playing a role later on in the movie, which was just really cool. But it almost shows Joy and the audience why Sadness is there, because it's Sadness, she's really just depressing through the whole movie. But there's that scene with Bing Bong where she basically empathizes with him. And it's like, well, I know you're sad and that you lost something you loved. And that's something that we've all experienced. And because of that sadness, he was able to get up and move on because somebody came to his aid. And that's something that everybody needs. And it was just a really well done thing for Pixar. They just really show that sadness is needed in your life. The other thing is even Joy learns that sadness is needed, and it's just fantastic job with them on that front. The other thing I like about this movie. Oh, you got something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna add. Even watching it, you kind of wonder why. Well, they obviously need to get rid of Sadness because Sadness is screwing everything up. But then they bring it all together, showing where one of the memories that Joy really loves so much, which is her team picking her up and carrying her, never would have happened had she not missed the game-winning shot.
Yeah.
And not been so low. So I thought that was a really cool tie-in.
Yeah, it was definitely, they did a really good job of basically taking you along this journey and just turning Sadness to kind of a hero in this movie, even though sadness is such a bad thing to people. The other thing I loved about this movie is the triple dent gum commercial.
Right.
Oh man, when I saw that, I was just laughing hysterically in the theaters because everybody has had that stupid tune in your head that never goes away.
Yeah.
And I just love how they had those little jelly bean looking things that were like, sometimes we just send those up just to
right.
just to give them crap. And I'm like, that is awesome. I freaking love that. The other thing that I loved about this movie is they managed to portray the emotions of a preteen perfectly. Even with the scene with the preteen boy towards the end of the movie, where he drops like his water bottle or something, and then she picks it up, and he just has nothing to say, and he's just standing there staring at her, and they zoom into his head, and everything's chaos. And it's just like, oh, well, I'm pretty sure all of us guys have been there before. It was just such a great scene, and I really enjoyed it.
Whatever do you mean?
Yeah, right. The other thing is the scene with Mom and Dad when Riley's upset, and they show the differences between what's in Mom's head and what's in Dad's head. And it's just, everything about that is just done so well about portraying the emotions of different people. And I think they nailed it right on the head. It was just really good. Yeah,
and I thought that was one of my likes too, was that different people have different personalities in control of them, and that the dad isn't paying attention, and so all of his voices are just watching this hockey game.
Yep.
They're just like, what did we miss?
Oh, that's great. All right, that's what I got for my likes. What else you got over there?
I think one of the things I really liked about this was that there was no villain in this movie, unlike most animated films. I mean,
there is no villain in this movie. They did a really good job. They didn't need that storyline to get this thing through.
They didn't need it as a crutch, and the whole thing takes place in her head, and there's enough of an internal struggle, growth with joy and sadness in particular to really, I think, bridge that that part, which would normally be like a giant, like Ursula or something weird like that.
Yeah.
I also really liked the design inside Riley's head. The construct of all the memories, it all looked like a brain. The way they got shot off into the distance looked like little synapses firing.
Yep, that was really cool.
Even the character's skin and hair, they had a particle effect to them, which made them look like they were thought up, like they were almost real, but weren't quite. And that was actually something early on when I was looking at a lot of the production artwork. I kept making these comments like that I didn't really care for how the characters were getting rendered.
Yeah.
And I think once I saw it on the big screen, I saw all the little subtleties with the skin and the little particle effects, and all of a sudden it made sense.
Yeah.
I really liked that Joy illuminated everything.
Mm-hmm.
That there were just a lot of really cool things. Even sadness being shaped like a teardrop.
Yeah.
Anger being really short and stocky. I thought from a design standpoint, everything was really sharp. And I think the last thing I liked, because I really liked, I think one of the things you already mentioned, but I really liked that Riley's home in San Francisco looked like a dump. Because
Why would you like that?
Well, because everything Pixar does is always so neat and shiny, even if it's supposed to be cluttered and a mess.
Yeah.
And I really felt like this was the first time where the home really wasn't that inviting. And of course, they didn't have her stuff.
Yeah.
So she couldn't make it feel like home. You know, the alleys were really dark and dirty. And, I think that just was amplified by the fact that she didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first time we've seen that in a Pixar movie.
Yeah, and that really helps drive the story along, because it just makes you definitely go along for the ride with Riley, and it's just such a well done movie.
There was one more thing, and that was I really loved that John Ratzenberger made it in right at the end. Like he goes to install the new command console, and he has just one quick little line, and then he's out of the movie.
They've been using him in every single Pixar movie, and they sure do squeeze him in there, don't they?
I just love that he's right at the end of the movie, though. Kind of like in The Incredibles, where he's the underminer.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for The Incredibles too, man.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Pixar's been doing such a good job. They've had very few movies that are not that good. Really, there's probably only a couple that just aren't on par with the rest of them, yet they're still better than some of the other companies. Except for that, I'm having the same problem that I have with all the Pixar movies. Did you watch that trailer for The Good Dinosaur? Did that show?
Yeah, I did see that.
That's another one of those where I have that same problem where I'm like, God, this doesn't look very good. And it's their first movie they've done where they've done 2 in a year that they're going to air. And it's just, I don't know. They're doing it to me again, man, where I'm just like, this movie doesn't look very good at all. And it's probably just going to win an Academy Award. So I don't know.
It can't, though, right?
Well, it can't. You're right, because this one's going to beat it.
Right.
All right, now we're done with our likes. Let's go ahead and get into the ratings of this movie. Pixar takes you on an emotional roller coaster with a feel-good ending and a very valuable moral. And so I say, see it, buy it. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it's the Academy Award-winning Inside Out.
I agree. This will win the Academy Award for animated feature. And I'll give it a see it.
I really think that this movie should get some more credit. Like, I think it needs to get another nod besides Best Animated Feature.
Not gonna happen.
Yeah, I know. But it should.
If they didn't give it to Beauty and the Beast...
That's a point.
It's, arguably the year that an animated film should have won.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of Inside Out. I would like to say, please everybody go visit our website, halfpasspodcast.com.
Like us on Facebook.
Rate us on iTunes. 5 stars.
We are on Stitcher and Libsyn.
And email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
Tweet us at halfpastpodcast.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. Next week we have a review of Ted 2.
Ah, yes.
So we'll see about that sequel.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.